Good morning, and thank you all for being here. My name is Joana. I'm a postdoctoral researcher within ReSpell at CRIA in Lisbon. My previous research focused on how contemporary pagans participated in a public space through the engagement in environmental and ecological issues, gender and power relations in Portugal and the United Kingdom. In this paper, I will present the research I intend to do within ReSpell, as well as the importance that autoethnography has for my work, considering the centrality of the embodied experience while researching contemporary paganism, and also to the fact that I also adhere to the religious and spiritual movement in my personal practices. It will be then based in preliminary data that I have from previous researches that will be explored in depth within ReSpell. I would like first to start to define what is contemporary paganism. It is a broad label used to define heterogeneous groups, currents, traditions, and paths that draw inspiration from European Central and pre-Christian religious traditions to create their paths and practices and adapt these to the necessities of contemporary life. Despite this heterogeneity, there are some principles that unite these movements. For instance, and the most important is then the belief of nature as sacred and as a sentient entity, and the celebration of a seasonal calendar, accepting the divine as both feminine and masculine, having both feminine and masculine energies. They tend to be pantheistic, animistic, and polytheistic, and ritual, myth, magic are used creatively to have concrete impacts in everyday life and in everyday life. These movements are influenced by social movements like environmentalism, feminism, and ecofeminism, women's rights movements, as well as from indigenous traditions and Oriental philosophies. They emerged in the second half of the 20th century and they've been growing since then. I've been working with pagans since 2016, and among this heterogeneity, that is the movement, there are pagans that use Bruxaria practices combined with their spiritual and religious experiences, mostly to attain healing. Having noted that, I decided to approach these practices and work then with pagans that use them. Bruxaria can be loosely translated as witchcraft. However, I prefer to use the term in Portuguese due to two reasons. First, witchcraft has been widely researched in anthropology with different approaches and definitions and associated with specific contexts. And second, in the context of contemporary paganism, witchcraft connects with a particular pagan current, in this case, Wicca. Considering that the people I work with do not all adhere to the path of Wicca and witchcraft, I consider it important to maintain the term in Portuguese, to have in consideration dynamic understandings of the word and the particularities of the Portuguese context, and following also what is proposed by several scholars that approach these types of practices in contexts like Italy and Spain that maintain dynamic terms such as tregaria and Bruxaria. I define Bruxaria as a set of practices that draw from knowledge gained through direct contact with nature and generational transmission that are believed to have concrete effects in everyday life. As you can see in this code, this practice can be understood as a more hands-on approach with the use of magic in conjunction with nature. And while paganism is a more spiritual, philosophical and religious experiences, Bruxaria has a more practical experiences to altering reality. This I will approach it in two ways. First, how it is used towards healing of the body, mind, to remove some bad energy, but two, of the collective, that this collective go beyond the interpersonal relations, entailing also the modern human and the earth, and is done mostly through the form of healing currents. Bruxaria practices can combine energetic work, as well as use of plants, symbols, sigils, arts that are then utilized to have concrete impact in the well-being of the people and of the planet. And in the case of the planet, it has been mostly used after some catastrophe or to contest any issue. In Portugal, I have seen this happened after some major wildfires, and also to contest the mining of lithium along the Portuguese coast, which leads then to the second use, that is as a form of resistance and identity affirmation in terms of gender, towards structural power. And these women, mostly women, are using these words in a subversive way, because it puts in question the established structural systems that are responsible for affecting people's identities and lives, and gives new meanings to a world loaded with stereotypes. And women using this word are then defining themselves as bruxas, or using bruxaria, subverting the meaning of the word, as you can see in this quote from Mariana, that these practices are directly related for her to a dimension of care, of managing the sacred, and reconciling with this tradition, or to the place that these practices add in Portuguese society, and that she is an heir to. Therefore, the research aims to analyze how contemporary pagans in Portugal use bruxaria practices to achieve personal and collective healing as a form of resistance. It will focus on how the knowledge regarding the therapeutic use of plants is applied for healing, as well as how certain artistic expressions, such as handcrafted products are infused with healing properties. At the same time, it will analyze how these practices are transreligious ways of living in the world and resisting the various societal, structural oppressions and crises that affect the well-being of people and of the planet. This can be considered transreligious exactly because healing, care, the personal, the collective, the political are interrelated, fluidly transpassing the borders between each other in the lived experience of contemporary pagans in Portugal, as the examples demonstrate. I will be working mostly with women between 20 to 60 years old of different socioeconomic backgrounds, and in the Portuguese territory in several municipalities, which leads then to the how and the place of autoethnography in my previous and future research. Doing research in the field of contemporary paganism is extremely sensorial, like it is in the case of any contemporary religiosity. First, because of the ritual practices that are conducted, but also because the senses are called forward while we are in the field, be it because of the smells, the sounds, the tastes, the colors, the textures, that the movement that is embodied in us, also in us. And reflexivity has always been very important to me, even more when I have a personal affinity to these movements. However, autoethnography has become a necessity. It is a form of research and writing method that approaches the researcher's personal experience in order to understand the sociocultural experience. Also considering the importance of the personal experience of the researcher over the research topic, the methods, the theoretical approaches, the emotional responses, and that arise in the intersectional experience of the researcher based on gender, age, class, race, sexuality, ability, education, and religion and spirituality. In my case, I'm working in a field that calls for embodied participation. And consequently, for me to attune to my own sensorial and embodied experience in order to understand what is being shared with me through co-created dialogues. But also, and correlates with the first, my own personal experience in conducting and experience rituals provides a sense of familiarity with these practices and to be attuned to the sensorial responses that renders the process of understanding more accessible. And considering the last 4 years that woke this need to rethink our methodological approaches when we cannot be in the field, and how precarious it is exactly this possibility to be in the field. It will this tool was for me a way to be attuned to it, even not when I was not with the people, and also to keep the research alive. The relationships and engagements with the field are embodied in us, and finding the space for our vulnerabilities and emotions can enrich the descriptions we do of the relationships we create. And sensitivity and focus on the personal, I believe that do not take away the analytical dimension and professional care necessary, which is one of the criticisms of this methodological approach. But I believe that is increasingly important to embrace then what we feel and how we feel the field and sense it. In the development of the research, I have found that focusing on my sensorial, emotional, and bodily responses in rituals while I'm doing bruxaria practices and crafting or using plants or dancing provides clues for understanding and creating a dialogue, as I mentioned, and for understanding the social and cultural context in which I work and live. And autoethnography allowed me for a greater understanding of this complexity and diversity of experiences, and also to leading me to reflect on my own position and identity within this context that is my own. It is an exercise of empathy and self-awareness that helps establish deeper connections. It is not I don't understand it as the focus that in myself, but then in this as this process of empathy and self-awareness. Therefore, owning my place in this web of relationships and is one of the ways that I found that we can be engaged. It is not the only one. It can be combined with several other methodological tools. But I believe that in these combined approaches, we can contribute for knowledge production about the sociocultural process that affect our everyday lives and of those we work with, but also create a dialogue and finding useful solutions to the several crises and for a continuity of life and for the future. I thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you have a great morning.